You are welcome to yet another episode of HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show, where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. In this country's legal system, every defendant is guaranteed the right to a fair trial. But in high-profile cases like R. Kelly's, where public opinion is fierce and media coverage is relentless, maintaining fairness becomes a delicate balancing act. The recent conviction of R. Kelly brought many legal issues and shortcomings of our justice system into the spotlight, one of which is the use of an anonymous jury. Some observers and case analysts argue that this alone was evidence of a prejudiced trial. And they do make a good point. To understand this better, let's explore the legal and ethical implications of anonymous juries in the context of R. Kelly's trial. There is no doubt that the use of an anonymous jury in R. Kelly's trial could create an implicit bias. Legal experts often warn that when jurors are treated as if they're in danger, it can influence how they view the defendant even subconsciously. And this is a valid concern. Jurors are human and subtle psychological cues can affect their perceptions. In cases like R. Kelly's, where the media had already painted a damning picture of him, additional measures like jury anonymity only reinforce those biases. In the pursuit of justice, courts are tasked with ensuring a fair trial for every defendant no matter the circumstances. The defense, however, disagrees with the use of an anonymous jury, arguing that this could influence jurors' perceptions of the defendant, creating a subtle but powerful implicit bias. Treating jurors as though they're in danger can shape how they view the defendant even on a subconscious level. In this episode of HN What's Your Say, we'll explore the implications of jury anonymity, the psychological dynamics of bias, and how these factors may have impacted one of the most high-profile trials of the decade. Let's start by explaining what this is. Jury anonymity is a practice where the identities of jurors are kept confidential, not just from the public but often from the defendant and their legal team. This measure is typically reserved for cases involving extraordinary circumstances, such as organized crime syndicates, terrorism, and anything else that may pose a threat to juror safety. The goal here is simple, and that's to protect jurors from any form of external pressures, intimidation, or retaliation, allowing them to focus solely on the evidence presented in court. In R. Kelly's case, the court cited intense media scrutiny and the potential for outside influence as reasons for impaneling an anonymous jury, largely because the defendant is high profile. In other words, according to our justice system, being a high-profile citizen is comparable to being a terrorist. This alone is prejudice against our celebrities. Anonymity also introduces an ethical and psychological dilemma in which the defendant is viewed by the jurors as a threat not only to the public but to the jurors themselves. I mean, who wouldn't want to lock up a person that endangers their life? To better understand the defense's concerns, we need to consider the psychology behind implicit bias. Implicit bias refers to unconscious attitudes or stereotypes that influence our judgments, decisions, and actions. Even well-meaning individuals are susceptible to these biases because they stem from subtle environmental cues. Imagine being a juror in a high-profile trial and you're told your identity will remain confidential because the defendant could hunt you down. Court officials take extraordinary measures to protect you from the public and security is heightened. Even before hearing a single piece of evidence, you might start to wonder why these precautions are necessary, and what kind of person the defendant is. This environment can inadvertently frame the defendant as dangerous or guilty, influencing how jurors interpret the evidence. Legal scholars warn that when jurors feel they need protection, it can create a subconscious assumption that the defendant poses a threat not just to society but to them personally, something which may cause them to prejudice the defendant. In fact, during R. Kelly's New York post-trial submissions, the defense raised these very concerns. They argued that the use of an anonymous jury combined with the already damning media narrative created an atmosphere where implicit bias was unavoidable. Consider the context. R. Kelly's legal troubles were not new to the public. For years his name was associated with controversy and scandal. The release of the documentary series Surviving R. Kelly only intensified public outrage, making it nearly impossible for jurors who actually confessed to watching the Lifetime TV show to remain unaffected by societal pressures. By impaneling an anonymous jury, the court may have inadvertently reinforced the idea that Mr. Kelly was guilty or dangerous, adding yet another layer of bias to an already challenging case. The presumption of innocence means that a defendant is considered innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. However, when jurors are shielded from the public, the implicit message can be that the defendant is already guilty and dangerous enough to warrant such protections. And this rids the defendant of high presumption of innocence, something we all have a right to. High-profile cases like R. Kelly's bring another complicating factor into the mix, and that is public opinion. By the time the trial began, public perception was overwhelmingly negative, fueled by years of media coverage and personal testimonies from alleged victims. In this climate, the use of an anonymous jury only amplified the effects of this bias. Jurors, already aware of the public outrage, may have felt an unspoken pressure to convict. A pressure compounded by the knowledge that their identities were being protected for their safety from the very defendant before them. Legal experts suggest several measures. First, rigorous jury selection processes, including extensive questioning during voir dire, can help identify potential biases before the trial begins. Second, clear instructions from the judge emphasizing the presumption of innocence can counteract implicit biases. Finally, courts must carefully weigh the necessity of anonymity. Alternative measures like sequestering jurors or increasing their security without knowledge may achieve the same goals without risking undue prejudice. In R. Kelly's case, the use of an anonymous jury raises important questions about the balance between protecting jurors and ensuring a fair trial. It challenges us to consider how the justice system operates in an era of relentless media scrutiny and public opinion. Are we doing enough to protect the presumption of innocence, or are we allowing subtle biases to creep into the courtroom and compromise defendants' rights? What do you think? Should anonymous juries be used more cautiously, or are they a necessary safeguard in high-profile cases? Please share your thoughts in the comment section below. If you wish to take part in a live interview on this channel discussing any of these topics, let us know by emailing us on sashahnnewsroom@gmail.com for scheduling. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say. To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.